Thank you, Zina. Well, that's a mistake on my profile. I'm the Assistant Secretary General now. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Minister Todd Macleay, Honorable High Commissioner Sanjeev Kohli, Mr. Grant McPherson, delegates of the conference, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed my pleasure to be here and represent FICCI in this very important conference. On behalf of FICCI and the visiting Indian delegate, I extend my a very warm thanks to INZBC for having us as the Indian partner for this very important conference. After the insightful addresses of Honorable Minister and Honorable High Commissioner, I think it's a tall order to speak about India-New Zealand relationships. However, my presentation will throw a bit of light. Much of the data has already been highlighted by both of them. Okay, so the Indian economy has already been, the data has been already highlighted. If we look at, education has always been a driver for any economy's development. And if we look at historically, where, thousands of years back, India was the golden goose of the world. And at that point of time, we had one of the oldest universities of the world, Takshashila. Post World War I, USA also recognized this very fact and opened its arms to the talented individuals from all across the world and built its higher education sector and therefore became one of the world's superpower. In the recent times, we see that countries like Korea, China have done the same, and India is also moving forward and doing this the same and focusing on developing education sector. We are a growing economy with 2.25 trillion GDP economy. We are growing at the 8.4% CAGR since 1991. Much of these data had also been highlighted by Mr. Mohandas Pai last evening. Many of you were present at that dinner address. And we expect that we will grow to a 7.25 trillion GDP by 2030. And therefore, the Indian economy is going to be one of the key drivers of the world. We are a new age aspirational community in India. We have the second largest internet user base with almost about 460 million internet users. And by end of 2020, we would have about 700 million broadband users. In 2016, we, government has been focusing on ease of doing business, and we improved our world ranking to 39th rank. We were up by 16 places. We still have a long way to go, but then we are moving very fast. And by end of 2015-16, India was a third largest startup ecosystem, and we believe that the startup ecosystem will be one of the biggest drivers of our economic development. Both Honorable Minister and Honorable High Commissioner has already spoken about the Indian demographic dividend. We are almost about 65% of our population is in the age of working group, and therefore we will be contributing in spite of the coming in of automation and artificial intelligence. Wherever human resource is going to be required, India is going to be playing a major role. If we look at the investments, we have also increased FDI flow, and that has been because of our Honorable Prime Minister going all over the world and actually projecting India as an investment destination across various sectors. By 2020, we will see increased urbanization of India is happening, and manufacturing sector will be contributing almost 90% of the GDP, and services sector will be contributing 75% of the employment 90% of employment and 75% of employment is expected to be contributed both by services and manufacturing. Our rising household income is also expected to increase the consumer spending, and therefore we are a domestic consumption economy, which the spending is going to be about $3.6 trillion by 2020. Honorable Prime Minister Modi has been focusing on various national initiatives to bring in very focused development across sectors. So we see national programs like Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, Startup India, Smart Cities. We have something called Clean India campaign, which is called Swachh Bharat. And we also have initiatives on agriculture, where we are talking about soil health card. So if we see that there is a very concerted focus on bringing about development across the sectors, and therefore skilling of human resource across these sectors is going to be an extremely important intervention by the government. I would just like to very quickly throw a little bit of light on what Government of India has been doing across the value chain of education, both in school, higher education, and skill development. If you look at the school education, there is a increase focused on STEM subjects. India has historically been very, strong in mathematics, but somewhere down the line, basic sciences had lost its charm for the young, and there is a concerted effort by the government to focus on these subjects, including languages. We are also, the Government of India is now opening up something called Atal Tinkering Labs, which will actually bring our young children into more inquiry and activity-based learning, and with the focus of scientific innovation culture within the schools. The Government of India has also set up something called e-Pathshala, which is an online repository of content, and use of ICT for learning, lesson planning and delivery is also very much in the increase, and several IT companies like Microsoft, Google, etc. are actually training our teachers in this aspect. When we look at the higher education, while our engineers and have done very well along with our medical clinical experts across the world, but somewhere the liberal arts element had been missed out in the education of engineers, and therefore there is a thrust on design, STEAM subjects, and multidisciplinary approach which the government is trying to push across universities and colleges. There's a very increased focus on research and innovation. Atal Innovation Centers are being set up in universities across India, and there's something called Impacting Research, Innovation and Technology, which is actually an initiative through industry, academia, to help commercialization of basic research from universities. Government of India has also set up a MOOC platform called Swayam, where we almost have now 350 online courses, and there is a national knowledge network which is operated through VSAT, which connects the universities for collaboration and engagement with each other. When we look at the skill development area, there was a disconnect between the TVET and education system in our country in the past. To align it, the National Skill Qualification Framework has been developed, and it is in the process of being implemented. It's a huge challenge because our country is a diverse country with 29 states, 7 union territories, and bringing all stakeholders together and to align to a thought process. It's time consuming and challenging, but we are going ahead and doing that. Government has also set up about 40 sector skill councils across to develop qualification packs and standards, which will be then aligned to the university and the training system in the country. And there is a great focus on recognition of prior learning, because our workforce in India is actually trained on the job most of the time. So we have only about 5% who are certified trained workforce, and to bring in parity and give them global recognition, this initiative has been launched. We've had apprenticeship schemes for a long time, because we do know that on-the-job training can happen only through apprenticeship. However, there were a lot of bureaucratic and procedural impediments which have been now removed by the government. Government is also focusing on looking at the Industry 4.0 challenges and what are the new skill set requirements, and accordingly realigning its policy. There is a thrust on entrepreneurship and startup, as we have already talked about, because year on year we have about 12 to 15 million youth coming into the workforce. However, about only 5.5 job creation happens annually, and therefore there is a thrust of job creation, and entrepreneurship development is a major thrust from the government. I will just briefly highlight what FICCI does in all these three areas. So we have a FICCI Alliance for Reimagining School Education. It's an advocacy and research platform where we have about 100 top school education providers from the private sector who come, and it's a think tank which looks at how school education can progress and align with the government agenda and policy. We are working on a PPP project. We have already signed up MOU with a state called Haryana, where our private schools adopt the government schools and help them in improving infrastructure, quality of education delivery, etc. We also do an annual school event, and this year in April we had the first event which focused on developing a Vision 2030 for school education, and which essentially looked at what are the skill set requirement for a 21st century knowledge economy, and how school should align and build our, develop our young to meet those 21st century challenges. FICCI was one of the first industry chambers to actually focus on higher education policy reform, and started doing very cutting-edge research in this area. Under the leadership of Mr. Mohandas Pai in 2013, we had developed a FICCI vision of 2030 on higher education, and I am happy to share that much of the reforms that are taking place in the higher education sector in India, much of the ideas have been derived from this vision. We also do a lot of projects in developing or in pushing the industry academia engagement for research. So there's one project that we are doing with Royal Academy of Engineering UK, where we are actually selecting about 15 to 20 Indian universities that have engagement with UK universities and the industry, and are doing some cutting edge research. Almost about 750 million pounds have been assigned to this project, which comes from Bhabha Newton Innovation Project Fund. And we are also working with various state governments to set up Center of Excellences in setting up grassroots innovation centers and accelerators across the sectors. We also do a large FICCI Higher Education Summit, which is the 13th year this year, and this is one of the largest events in our side of Asia. This year the focus is on leapfrogging to education 4.0, student at the core, and it was felt that since we are moving towards industry 4.0 and looking at future of jobs, education sector has to leapfrog from education 2.0 and to the 4.0 scenario. In skill development, we also have been doing a lot of cutting edge research, and fortunately we have our chair currently, again Mr. Mohandas Pai. We were the first chamber to actually start looking at Industry 4.0 and trying to gauge where India stands in preparedness to deal this challenge. and we gave a report to the government, and based on that, now the government has set up various working groups across DIPP, that is Department of Industrial Policy Promotion, and also in the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Development. We are also currently doing research on future of jobs, which is being done jointly with NASSCOM, where we are looking at 4 to 5 sectors like banking and retail and apparel and IT, ITES, to see what are the challenges that the future holds for us, where are the job displacement happening, and what kind of new skill sets are required for new emerging jobs. And based on that, obviously the businesses and the governments can form their policy. We are also doing a lot of work with the state governments under a DFID project, where we are helping state government to set up skill development missions. We are also helping the sector skill councils in building their capacity to develop qualification packs, and we are also working with Ministry of Skill Development under this project to actually promote apprenticeship awareness amongst industry, particularly the medium and small enterprises. We are also trying to develop a technology platform which is a process mechanism and for mobilization and monitoring of youth for skill development, which is a huge challenge considering our country's diversity and diversity across all segments. We also do a skill conference, which is called the Global Skills Summit, and the focus this year is new age skill development for today and tomorrow, and this is on September 15th this year. So I know I have, I think, taken more time than I was prescribed, but thank you very much. It's a great opportunity for India and New Zealand to collaborate in education sector, and I welcome you all to India. Thank you.